What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I wanted to showcase some Goodra gameplay in the Open Great League. This Pokemon has very flexible coverage using Dragon-type Fast Food Pressure, Water, and Electric-type coverage on its charge moves, making it a very scary Pokemon. The only issue with Goodra is it doesn't have same-type attack bonus on either Aqua Tail or Thunder Punch, so some neutral matchups can be a bit annoying. But without further ado, let's get into the battles and see what Goodra can do. Alright, let's get right on into the first game of the day. Goodra in the lead up against an Oranguru, a very neutral matchup here. I know our backline, though, does want to avoid this. We would be taking super effective damage with Trailblaze on either our Shadow Feraligatr or with our Diggersby, so staying in this matchup here, going for neutral damage should be a good play. And comes likely a Brutal Swing from our opponent here. Yeah, it's not going to do too much damage to us, but the next one would likely knock us out here. I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail, try to draw a shield or get as much chip damage against him as I can. Aqua Tail does come through, but it's not the strongest move in the game, and our opponent easily able to get to another move here. I'm going to let this go, try to survive, but I think it will knock us out. But they are in range now where Fire Punch and Quick Attack will be able to knock out the Oranguru and make it so this Pokemon is not going to be a big threat for our backline. If they shield us up, that's fine by me. I'll just let shield go on our Diggersby or move go. I don't need to shield up a Trailblazer. Our opponent does opt to let the Fire Punch go, actually, and they come in with their own Diggersby. I've seen 2 normal types already. Good chance this could be a theme team with 3 normal type Pokemon. If that is the case, our Shadow Feraligatr is not going to have a lot of play, knowing that Shadow Claw damage is going to be resisted by these normal type Pokemon. With that said, in comes a charge move here. We did land a Scorching Sands against them. Unfortunately, no attack drop, but we don't really need it at this point. Just getting that chip damage has put them into range where Hydro Cannon could knock them out later on this game, and our opponent swaps into a Dunsparce. Now, Shadow Feraligatr does have play in this matchup, but the longer it goes on, the better it gets for Dunsparce, and I know we need to land a Hydro Cannon against that Diggersby later on this game if I want any chance. Our opponent lets that first charge move go. It looks like they have a very bad Dunsparce. Normally, they can survive that with about half of their health remaining if they have a good one, but they're almost at a third of their health already. Another Hydro Cannon is going to be thrown. Our opponent likely will have to shield this up or risk letting their Dunsparce go, and they do invest their first shield. In comes another charge move from our opponent. I shielded up the first one. I have to shield up the second one, and let us see what they're going to do. In comes that Drill Run here. Another Hydro Cannon is going to be thrown. Likely going to see a shield, but our opponent might let this go if they are confident in Diggersby closing out the backline here. Our opponent, though, is going to end up shielding that. They call the combo play with our Diggersby. Unfortunately for them, though, I stay in for just a second longer than they were expecting. I go for the Hydro Cannon. It should knock out this Diggersby, and now we have our own Diggersby and our Shadow Gator against this Dunsparce. GG's to them. Next matchup here, Goodra up against an Azumarill, a Pokemon we are a little bit ABA weak to, right? We are going to take super effective Fairy-type damage, or even Ice-type damage with the charge moves from this Pokemon with our Goodra, and then also Water and Ice is good against our Diggersby in the backline. So I'm going to stay in here for just a second and see what our opponent's going to do. Thunder Punch, as you can see, though, it's a very sizable amount of damage against an Ozzy, right? I try to catch a Play Rough. It doesn't quite work out for us, but our opponent swapped into a Mandibuzz before throwing any energy here, so despite not getting the catch, it's not the worst-case scenario, but Ozu does have a ton of energy left over on it. Fire Punch is going to try its best to whittle down this Mandibuzz, but this matchup will take quite a while to play out. I think they are on Air Slash, yeah, so it's going to do a bit more fast pressure to us, but their charge pressure is going to be so much slower here. Fire Punch once again coming through there at below half HP, and now they're going to start throwing charge moves against us. I know Diggersby is bulky, Mandibuzz is bulky. These moves are not going to do any damage back and forth. It's just a foul play as well. No Dark Pulse here from this Mandibuzz. Foul play generally is going to be the moves that you want to run on Air Slash just because it is a little bit more spammy. Fire Punch comes through. It does a decent chunk once again, but I think 2 more Fire Punches will be required if I want to knock out this Mandibuzz anytime soon. In comes another charge move. Foul play does not knock us out here, and I do want to save health on our Diggersby if I can, but I don't think I can just knock them out with a Fire Punch here. I have to swap out if I want to keep our Diggersby alive at this point, and in comes another charge move here in just a second. I'm just going to let it go at this point, get a farm down with either Shadow Gator or Goodra, depending on where I think energy is going to be more important, and try to win the endgame with this energy lead. We do have almost a Thunder Punch here. Our opponent comes back in Ozu. They have basically 100 energy at this point, so I can go for this Thunder Punch and get any sort of damage against this as I can. Actually, we do get a shield of all things, which is also very good to see. That shield will make it so our Shadow Feraligatr should have a bit more play in the backline. Player off not quite enough to one-shot us here, but it will put us pretty low into fast move farm down range later on this game. And in the back, luckily, it's going to be a Pokemon that I think a shield advantage Shadow Feraligatr should easily be able to overcome. It is their own Shadow Drapion, a Pokemon, which while it is a little bit scary because they resist our Shadow Claw damage, down to shield and down energy, it's not going to want to take a Hydro Cannon. We can just outpace them here even if they bait us and go for a Hydro of our own, knock them out here, save our shield for that Ozu's Play Rough, and we should be able to win this game with our Gator in the back. In comes yet another Hydro Cannon. It does knock out the Shadow Drapion. Azu comes back in. Not enough HP on that thing or energy to knock out our Shadow Gator with a shield advantage. GG to them. All right, a neutral matchup here on this next game. Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. A Pokemon that, while you would expect it to be a good matchup for Goodra having super effective Aqua Tail damage, it's not all that great just because we are going to be outpaced to these Bone Clubs and these Mud Saps are adding up quite a bit here. In comes an Aqua Tail. Our opponent likely will shield this up. It would nearly one-shot them if they let it go. And yeah, they do opt to let that move, to shield that move rather, and they are throwing yet another charge attack up against our Goodra. At this point though, we've done what we needed to do. We got a shield advantage. We might be able to use this as a way to sweep with our Shadow Alligator in the backline. In comes our Diggersby, and even though they will get to a move here, they will not get to a second. We can get a full quick attack down, and even the best answers to Diggersby don't really want to take that many charge moves from me here, especially if I get a debuff, it could be very helpful. We get that full quick attack down, and what is our opponent going to bring in now to counteract our Diggersby's energy? Actually going to be a Dunsparce of all things, a Pokemon that I would say by no means is an answer to Diggersby. I would have to imagine, like, what would be in the backline that'd be even weaker to us here? Maybe a Poison type, maybe like a Galarian Corsola or something. If that's the case, then our Shadow Alligator might have some play, depending on what that Poison type could be. A Toxapex would be kind of bad. Like a Clodsire Drapion could definitely be playable with our shield advantage, though. And comes a charge move. We got a debuff, actually, with our Scorching Stance here, I think, on our second one. So this means that this Scorching Stance at number 3 should be able to knock them out or come close to it. And after that debuff, these drill runs doing absolutely nothing to us here. In the backline, unfortunately for our opponent, it is a Clodsire. We have a Scorching Stance ready to go here. Even if we didn't, we have a shield advantage and a Shadow Alligator in the backline. Our whole team actually has a ton of play into this Pokemon. We get a debuff as well, and a shield with that Scorching Stance. I tried to CMP the Fire Punch, but it is an IV-dependent CMP. We end up losing it here, meaning that we don't get that chip damage. It does not matter in the slightest, though. 2 Shield Shadow Gator against a debuff Clodsire. There is nothing they can do. At this point, our opponent is going to top left. GG's to them. All right, next matchup, what are we going to see? Goodra up against the Shadow Annihilape in the lead. A very neutral matchup here. We actually have a lot of similar damage here with our Dragon Breath and counters. Counter is basically a 2-turn Dragon Breath, so very similar attacks here, but they do have the ability to boost their attack with a Rage Fist, which will make this matchup, the longer it goes on, more favorable to this monkey. In comes an Aqua Tail. Our opponent could shield this up if they want to win the 2-shield matchup, which it seems like that's normally what they like to do. At this point, I'm just going to play out the 1 shield. I know that we've got it low enough at this point we can Shadow Claw down with our Shadow Gator, and we've got rid of a Pokemon that our Diggersby really does not want to see. Our opponent ends up instantly swapping out actually to a Drapion, though. I can go for a Hydro Cannon and likely draw a shield from this. If I get a shield, I'll swap to Diggersby. Honestly, either way, I probably want to swap to Diggers here. Our opponent actually opts to let it go, though. That's kind of interesting. I was not expecting that. I catch likely a Crunch here. It could be an Aqua Tail if they were crazy and they baited us, but no, it's just going to be a Crunch. We get debuffed as well. That's not great to see here. In comes the Annihilape. We can't quick attack this down super easily, so we're just going to throw this Fire Punch. I have basically 2 Pokemon against 1 in the backline. There's very few Pokemon that I can see myself losing to, but this might be one of them. There's a Superior in the back, of Pokemon with a lot of super effective damage against my backline, and despite having both Ice Beam and Fire Punch here, we absolutely needed our Goodra for this Pokemon. In comes our first Fire Punch, barely puts them below half HP after these quick attacks, and they are at way too much energy at this point. They're going to be able to outpace our Shadow Gator to these 2 Frenzy Plants before we can win the game, so GG's to them. Very good recognition of using their Superior in the backline. Next game, a Goodra into a Mandibuzz in the lead. Very good matchup here. Super effective Thunder Punch is going to add up over time. These Dragon Breaths as well are chipping them down quite a bit already. Air Slash is the moveset of choice from our opponent, meaning that they're going to have a bit more fast move pressure, a bit less charge move pressure here, so we can easily outpace them, go for these Thunder Punches, and try to knock out one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the game. In comes a charge move, another Foul Play user, it looks like, so they're not going to be able to go for an Aerial Ace here in just a second. If they would have gone Aerial Ace, they might be able to make us go for a CMP on the second Thunder Punch, but because it's just a Foul Play, we can outpace, have a bit more energy out of this matchup, and Thunder Punch is enough to knock out this Mandibuzz. In the backline, going to be a very unique Pokemon here, a Shadow Steelix, a Pokemon which, while it does have the ability to resist our Dragon-type damage, it's going to take a ton of damage from an Aqua Tail. Our opponent lets it go, actually, and they're investing in a full Thunderfang down. Thunderfang is going to do nothing here to our Diggersby, and the final Pokemon is actually going to be a Shadow Kanto Marowak here. I was going to swap when I saw Ground instantly, but I also know Shadow Marowak is going to be able to go for a full 2-shield farm down against our Shadow Gator, so I want some energy on our Diggersby before we swap out here. I'm going to swap now, go for our Hydro Cannons when we can here. Our opponent going for a Bone Club. This will draw a shield, but at this point, our Diggersby can close out this game. All I need to do is get shielded with our Shadow Gator. It's going to be able to win this game just with these Hydro Cannons. Our opponent might be lagging a little bit here. It doesn't really matter, though. In the grand scheme of things, all I need to do is get these 2 Hydro Cannons off, and I would always be able to do that. Then we can go for the Scorching Sands with our Diggersby and win the game one way or another. In comes the next Hydro Cannon. Our opponent did shield that first one up. Are they going to shield the second one? I would have to imagine they will. Actually, they're just going to invest here into their Shadow Steelix or realize the game is over. All right, next matchup, Goodra up against a Clodsire. While this matchup is very neutral, it's actually kind of good for Goodra because we have Aqua Tail, but it's also kind of bad because we have 2 Pokemon in the back that I would consider better answers to this Clodsire, especially Diggersby might be a little bit pinned in the back line if this is its best matchup and we're going to waste our Goodra against it. We actually properly do shield up that Earthquake, which is fantastic to see. Earthquake would have done a lot of damage, put us into Poison Sting downrange potentially, and an Aqua Tail is going to come through. Doesn't quite get the 2-shot here, but because Clodsire is a little bit slow to reaching charge moves, and we did shield up an Earthquake, we can reach another Aqua Tail and likely either knock them out or draw a shield. Looks like they do end up letting that go, and we get the KO against that Pokemon. They come in with a pick that honestly I wish we had a charge move coverage for here with our Goodra. We only have Thunder Punch and Aqua Tail as our charge moves. I'm going to go for the Thunder Punch. It is a little bit more raw damage, and I don't even know how we're going to win this game at this point. They do have to superpower us to knock us out. I'm going to call that they're going to Frenzy, but honestly, I don't know what we can do right now. Let's see. Superpower does knock us out. They're almost got another one, and they swap out to a Talonflame. There is a little bit of play for us this game, but I don't know if we can win this, honestly. They give us a Shadow Claw sneak. I need as much fast food pressure as I can get. I need to put them into Fire Punch range. Fly is going to be able to draw our first shield, or second shield, rather. We're going to draw their first shield with our Hydro Cannon, and let's see if they want to double shield their Talonflame. I'm going to have to imagine they would, but they could also likely just invest in that Chestnut, and I'd be in a very bad spot. In comes another Hydro. Are they going to shield this, or will they just let this go? I think they're likely going to shield this and try to get another move off against our Diggersby with this Talon. In comes another Fly. They're 1 Incinerate away from another Fly at this point, and I know I'm not at a Scorching Sands. Even if I was, I would come close to knocking him out, but I don't think it would be quite enough. They come back in with that Chestnut, and now I know it's a game over. They already had a Frenzy when they swapped out of this matchup, so they're going to be able to reach another one in just a second. Only way I can win this game is if I can come out with like a Scorching Sands of energy, and there's no way Diggersby can outpace this before they can reach a Superpower or a Frenzy Plant here. They throw the Superpower, they knock out our Diggersby, and unfortunately not quite enough for us to win that game. All right, next matchup, Goodra up against a Dewgong. Another Pokemon we are a little bit ABA weak to, but we have to keep in mind we have Dragon Breath, we have Thunder Punch. This matchup, despite being a little bit awkward, is not the worst case scenario. Thunder Punch coming through, our opponent could go for a shield here if they want to shield up a super effective move, but also it's shielding up a move from a Dragon-type Pokemon. Do they really want to do that? It looks like this time they did opt to shield that up. I'm going to shield myself here, go for another Thunder Punch, and see what they want to do. Icy Wind is going to end up drawing our shield. We actually end up swapping out to Shadow Gator, clearing that debuff. Maybe we can use our Thunder Punch later on this game as a way to knock out that Dewgong. And this Wigglytuff is going to try its best to make our life very miserable right now. I know that we have these Hydro Cannons which do a lot of damage, but because this Pokemon is so annoyingly bulky and they are a normal type Pokemon, nowhere able to Shadow Claw this down. We have to throw another Hydro Cannon, waste a ton of energy, and back comes in that Dewgong here. This is not the worst case scenario, actually. I know Hydro won't knock them out, but it will put them down pretty low. And because I'm able to either draw a shield or get this damage against them, that should put them to a range where I can farm them down with Diggersby or with our Goodra and potentially win this game depending on what that final Pokemon is going to be. In comes Goodra. We do get that full farm down. We have a ton of energy. What's that final Pokemon going to be this game? It is a Drifloon, a Pokemon I would love to see here. Drifloon obviously is going to have to shield up a Thunder Punch, or even if they no-shield this Aqua Tail, it's going to do about as much, if not more damage than a Fire Punch from Diggersby would do. I'm going to save a bit of energy there. I'm actually 1 Astonish away from getting knocked out. We transfer the Astonish damage so that it can maybe get to another Aqua Tail later on this game. As long as I'm 1 move away from an Aqua Tail here on our Goodra, we should be able to do 1 Dragon Breath, throw the Aqua Tail before the next Astonish is going to register thanks to that damage transfer. And I also cleared, or I can clear my debuff rather. Haven't quite cleared a debuff just yet. We are debuffed with our Diggersby, but this Fire Punch is going to come through. It's going to try to chip him down as much as we can here. Fire Punch number 2 will do a decent chunk of damage, but at this point I know all I need to do is swap out to our Goodra when we can. Don't transfer an Astonish back over, and since I can swap out right there, it is a 0-turn swap. We have the Aqua Tail ready to go after 1 more Dragon Breath. This should be enough to knock out the Drifloon and win us the match there. GG's to them. Alright, next matchup, going to see a Goodra up against a Citadel. Oh my goodness, that is a very bad lead to see here. I am AVA weak to Ice types, as I've seen, but this is not like the Dewgong where I have super effective damage. It is going to be so much more awkward here because Citadel obviously has Avalanche. It has Body Slam to bait as well. I try to catch an Avalanche. It doesn't quite work out, or I guess it does. They go for an Avalanche anyway. I guess I just wanted to go for the heavier hitting move here. In comes their own Shadow Alligator Pokemon, which, while we do have a lot of play into this, is going to be able to easily win switch against us because of the fact that Avalanche did so much damage. And comes their move. At this point, though, I can let this go, get a farm down with our Goodra. One thing about Goodra is ice types aren't the hardest answers to you in the world. They did drain energy as well against our Shadow Gator. We have a lot of neutral, fast, and charge move pressure up against this ice type Pokemon. Aqua Tail, number 1, gonna be thrown against the Toddle here. Our opponent does actually opt to shield that move, which is kind of interesting to me. I didn't expect a shield there. In comes another Aqua Tail. This might draw a shield, it might not. It depends on how much our opponent wants to save this Toddle. They double shield their ice type with our Goodra here. At this point, I'm just going to invest in our Diggersby. I can let this go. They have so much energy. They can't get to an Avalanche, though, plus a Body Slam bait. So all I need to do is watch for a catch here, go for a Fire Punch when I can, and try to KO this Ice-type Pokemon. We'll shield up for sure. They're not at Body Slam plus an Avalanche, so even if they bait us here, they will not be able to draw our second shield. We end up going with their Fire Punch here immediately. What is our opponent's final Pokemon going to be? Hopefully it's something Diggersby has play into. So Toddle goes down. Our opponent reveals it is a Galarian Corsola, likely the best Pokemon we could have possibly seen there. GG's to them. Next game, a Mandibuzz in the lead once again. What is the moveset? We've seen a lot of Air Slash today. This one is no exception. An Air Slash Mandibuzz going to be able to do a lot of faster pressure against us, but because it is a bit slower to these charge moves, I can outpace to Thunder Punch and win the Zero Shield matchup pretty comfortably. Our opponent might have access to Dark Pulse, so Dark Pulse would do a bit more damage than I'd like, but we'll have to see what they're going to throw. Our opponent is throwing a charge move after building up a ton of energy, but it is just, once again, a foul play. I can go for this Thunder Punch in just a second here, try to get a knockout or a shield from this Mandibuzz. I would love it if they shield, because at that point I can get a nice energy lead with our Diggersby and get a shield advantage for a Shadow Gator, but they opt to let it go and come in with a Carbink. I don't want to give him a farm down here. Our opponent shows their final Pokemon is a Shadow Gator, and at this point this game is more than over. Shadow Gator is going to be able to beat our opposing Shadow Gator up all this energy, and at this point our Diggersby is looking so good against that Carbink later on this game. In comes a Hydro Cannon from our opponent. I do opt to shield it up here because these Shadow Claws from my own Gator are going to do so much more damage than any moves that I have with either my Diggersby or my Goodra. So I'm going to go for this next Hydro Cannon. Our opponent does opt to shield it up, actually, and now I can quick attack this down, go for a full Diggersby closing out of this endgame. In comes the next Hydro Cannon. It knocks us out. Quick attack down at that for Alligator, or I guess they just swap back into Carbink, and then they realize the game is over. GG's to them. Next matchup, Goodra up against a Shadow Dragonite, a Pokemon which does have a lot of fast move pressure, but we have to keep in mind Goodra as well is doing super effective Dragon Breath damage to them, so I can just shield once farmed down. Goodra is so much bulkier than this Shadow Dragonite that we are able to just win this straight fast moves in the one shield matchup. I'm going to save this energy for whatever is going to come in here. What is it going to be? It's a Gastrodon, actually. Very tricky Pokemon for our backline. We don't actually have a hard answer to this on our entire team, but we can chip it down and try to use a lot of neutral game pressure to win this matchup. In comes a lot of Mud Slap damage. It is going to chip us down likely with an Earth Power here. It could be a Water Pulse as well, though I have seen a couple of those in the Go Battle League, but it's not the most common move that Earth Power is going to be thrown, and our opponent is staying in for just a second longer, so I will throw the Scorching Sands and try to get a knockout if I can. Our opponent opts to let it go. It doesn't quite knock out. They actually have a bit of an uncomfortable amount of HP remaining. They stored a move on their Gastrodon as well, and in comes, I think that was their own Diggersby, which is actually a bit tricky to see. I know Diggersby at this point is going to have a lot of work to do, and I need to maybe get a shield from this if I can. I know if they no-shield this move, we're actually in a very big world of hurt right now, because I know that I cannot knock them out with fast move pressure. I get a debuff, which is good, but they no-shield it. I catch a move. If this is a Fire Punch, there might be a chance for us to still win this game, but if this is a Scorching Sands, that's going to do a lot of damage despite the debuff here. They do go for the Fire Punch. Good catch by me, but the problem is now another Scorching Sands is already going to be reached, and I don't know how I can win this game. I can reach a Hydro Cannon here in just a second. Our opponent is going to be forced to shield something this game, and I know I do have some energy on Goodra. I have some energy on Diggersby, and there is still a bit of fast move pressure across the board with my quick attacks and my Dragon Breaths. There might still be a chance for us right now. I'm going to no-shield this up, or I'm going to shield this up rather. I'm going to try to get this final shield if I can, or if they're going to swap out, that is also fine by me. All I have to do is go for the Dragon Breath down, and then go for Aqua Tails up against that Diggersby when it comes back in. And then I also have a charge move almost ready to go on our Diggersby thanks to that catch we did earlier on this game. Aqua Tail likely going to draw that shield, and I can swap out, go for a Fire Punch or a Scorching Sands against this Pokemon, and try to knock him out with faster pressure after the fact. I'm just going to go for the Fire Punch. I don't know if I'd win CMP if I went for a full-on Scorching Sands, so instead going for Fire Punch. Don't quite get the knockout, but it's enough to not quite put them into Quick Attack down range either, but it will be in Dragon Breath down range. We have enough HP. That one Dragon Breath is going to be more than enough to knock them out and barely close us out of that endgame. GG's to them. Next game here, Goodra up against an Azumarill. We've seen this lead a couple times today. Very tricky matchup, but I know I can win this. All I have to do is go for chip damage with our Thunder Punches and try our best to whittle it down so our Diggersby does not have to deal with it. Thunder Punch going to come through. Does our opponent shield it up? I'd be surprised if they do. Azumarill is going to be able to easily survive not one, but even two of these moves, especially before the fast food pressure is going to start adding up against them. And we actually this time do catch a move. Is this a play rough? Please tell me it is. It is a play rough, which is fantastic to see. And our opponent brings in the non-shadow Drifblim. This Pokemon, not the hardest answer to Diggersby, but I think the non-shadow especially is a little trickier to deal with after that chip damage has been done to us, because we are now in range where two Icy Winds knock us out, and our Fire Punches and Quick Attacks are doing absolutely nothing to them. In comes another charge move. Icy Wind likely going to be thrown against us here. Unfortunately, no Mystical Fire. That would have been fantastic to see if they did have it. I'm kind of wondering right now if it's going to be Azu double Ghost. I have seen that with like a Corsola in the back line. If it's Annihilate, that could be also a little bit tricky with a lot of fast pressure later on. But we'll have to see what they're going to do here. Our opponent actually, oh, I don't get the catch unfortunately, but they are building up a ton of energy. Since they do maybe have a Shadow Ball, I will shield this up. It's just an Icy Wind, of course. That's the only move they ever throw. It is an Annihilate in the back line, but this is going to be such a tricky endgame. I know they have a lot of energy on that Azu. I know that I might be able to draw shields against this despite being debuffed, but I don't think they're quite going to be in range after that Icy Wind debuff where I can knock them out with an Aqua Tail once our Gator goes down. I will try to shield this up, get a bit more Shadow Claw damage if I can. Hydro Cannon likely going to draw the shield, but I don't know if I can win this game. They have so much energy across the board. That Drifblim is not dry. Azumarill very close to a charge move here, and they are boosted with this Annihilate. I'm going to go for a charge move, but they build up to 7. This could be an Ice Punch. I'm just hoping right now it's just a Rage Fist, but it's an Ice Punch. It's going to be able to easily sweep the endgame here. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, what are we going to see? Goodra up against a Whiscash in the lead. A very interesting Pokemon to see. Not the most common Pokemon in the current meta. I'm going to at least bait that I could have Power Whip. I know most of the time they're going to expect Thunder Punch and Aqua Tail, but you might as well make them think that they're going to have to shield here. Our opponent, though, swapping out to Mandibuzz of all things. This is a Snarl Mandibuzz. First time we've seen Snarl today, but because we have Thunder Punch here, it's going to do so much damage to them. I'm fine throwing this move, trying to get a shield if I can against them, and going for yet another one, chipping them down as low as we can. Thunder Punch number 2 comes through. Does our opponent shield this up? I would be surprised. Normally Mandibuzz does not like to shield these charge moves, especially on the save swap, and our opponent throwing a charge move instantly after the fact. I wanted to catch this move, but because they did throw it as quickly as they could have here, makes it a little bit harder to catch. I'm going to catch the next move, though. This should just be an Aerial Ace, which means that this is going to do very little damage and waste a ton of energy from this Mandibuzz. Ace does come through, and they do have the ability to swap back out here into their Whiscash. I know Scald doesn't one-shot us here, but the next one will start coming close to knocking us out. It definitely will knock us out if they do throw it before our next Scorching Sands, which, because they swapped out with so much energy, they are able to now throw. I can shield this up, go for a Scorching Sands of my own. Hopefully no attack drop. We didn't get debuffed on the first one, or now the second one, which is fantastic to see here. We have another Scorching Sands ready to go against this Pokemon, but we are not quite going to be able to knock them out with this move. That's a bit unfortunate here, but I have energy on our Goodra. I can swap out, go for a combo play, and CMP on a charge attack, likely going to be a Scald that we caught here, so our opponent will have to let that go, and come in with their Mandibuzz once again. Oh, not a Mandibuzz. That's actually ABA, hard, or ABB rather, Dark and Flying type Pokemon. Hard ABB team here. We do barely reach this Aqua Tail, which is fantastic to see, but this is such an awkward situation to be in. I know I can likely reach a Hydro Cannon with her Shadow Gator, but I don't know if we have enough in the tank with her Diggersby to still win this matchup. In comes a Hydro Cannon here. Our opponent is going to have to shield this up. They know it's just a Hydro, but they also know at this point, if they don't shield that move, they likely are just going to lose this game. I have to no-shield. I know that it's not going to be a Brave Bird here, and I have to save our shield for our Diggersby at this point. Go for quick attacks plus fire punches. Try our very best to whittle down this Pokemon. If that was a Brave Bird they threw against our Gator, then I would have known that they would have been debuffed, so that's why it was a very easy call there to make, but this is still an awkward spot to be in. Ancient Power is going to be thrown. It draws our final shield here. Fire Punch is going to be thrown against this Moltres. It should get the knockout or come very close to it. Our opponent is going to have a decision to make. Do they think they can sucker punch us down? Our opponent swapped out. They try to snarl us down with their Mandibuzz. They're one snarl away from another Aerial Ace, so we get the full Shadow Claw down here. In comes that Moltres. If it's within one Shadow Claw range, we can win this game. Barely we do. GG's them. Next matchup going to be the Talonflame in the lead. Fantastic lead matchup here for our Goodra to see, but our opponent is staying in here, which honestly is a little bit tricky to deal with. I know a lot of the time you're going to see these teams with a Grass type in the backline, likely Superior as one of the 2 remaining Pokemon. If that is the case, then wasting my Goodra could be a very tricky thing to see later on. I will shield up though. I know they shielded, so I'm going to shield myself. Fly is going to draw that first shield from us, and in comes another Aqua Tail. We are barely able to outpace them, and let's see what they're going to do. Aqua Tail ends up coming through. Our opponent is going to shield it up. We catch the next fly on our Diggersby, and we're going to try our best to go for a Fire Punch here in just a second if they do stay in. Fly does do a decent chunk of damage here, but then they're going to build up even more energy. That's just another Fly at this point. I'm kind of wondering what they have in the backline that they're staying in so long with their Talonflame for. Might be like a Drapion, might be, I guess our own Diggersby makes sense too. I know at this point, this could be the Pokemon they were worried about with our Goodra, so maybe our Goodra doesn't have as much play as I would like it to in the backline. We do reach that Scorching Sands here. If I can reach another one, if I can get a debuff especially, that would be fantastic, but I am kind of worried right now they might be able to go for a full quick attack down against us. If they can, 2 Scorching Sands against our Goodra would be enough to knock us out, but our opponent is going to get a little bit scared. They throw a charge move right before I am able to reach a Fire Punch. I think if I were them, they should have gone for a full farm down against us, but because they did throw energy, we are in a little bit of a better spot. We have a Shield Advantage Shadow Gator in the backline. We have the ability to potentially go for an Aqua Tail against this Pokemon as well. What are they going to do? They're staying in here. They try to make a catch on their Talonflame. Luckily, I don't fall for it. What's going to come in now, fortunately, it is going to be that Diggersby, which means I can go for this Aqua Tail before another charge move and take out a Pokemon that it would have been kind of tricky for our Shadow Alligator to take out. In comes their final Pokemon. It's going to be a very close endgame, actually. It's a Toxapex. Probably one of the few Pokemon that could actually take us out here at a shield deficit against our energy and shield advantage Shadow Gator. In comes a Hydro Cannon. It is not going to be able to knock them out here with the next one. I need to be able to survive a Brine and get to 2 more Hydro Cannons if I want any chance to win this game. We are actually going to have to CMP on this Hydro Cannon right now. Do I survive a Brine? If I do, I win this game. If I get knocked out here, it is going to be so unfortunate because our Goodra would have had so much play this entire matchup, but because of the ability of our opponent to dance around so much, they were able to neutralize one of the trickiest Pokemon they could have possibly seen here, but fortunately, we have survived that Brine. We are able to throw this Hydro Cannon, knock out the Toxapex, and take the win. Next matchup, what are we going to see here with our Goodra in the lead? It is none other than a Jumpluff, a Pokemon that honestly, we're kind of triple weak to with our team. I wouldn't consider a Dragon type that good of a counter into a Jumpluff, mainly because these Fairy Winds are adding up and they have a lot of bulk. I'm going for a non-stab Thunder Punch. Dragon Breath, while it is adding up over time, you can see it's not doing quite enough here. Our opponent is throwing a charge move. They built up a ton of energy. It could be an Acrobatics, but it might just be double Aerial Ace. Our opponent actually does have Acrobatics here, and I'm going to throw another Thunder Punch right before, or actually, I guess I can't. They're going to throw a charge move against us here. Likely going to be an Aerial Ace to knock us out. But, oh, it's actually an Energy Ball. Double nukes. I see an opportunity here. I'm going to go for a 1-shield farm down against this Jumpluff. I know at this point, they aren't going to be able to get to 2 Aerial Aces or Aerial Ace Bait plus an Energy Ball. I can just shield once, get 100 energy out of this matchup, and I should be in a pretty good spot here. Our opponent now safe swaps a Shadow Drapion on a Pokemon that by no means wants to take these Hydro Cannons, and because we have so much of an energy lead, I might be able to reach 2 before Crunch is going to be thrown. In comes the next Hydro Cannon. Our opponent now is going to be a little bit in a tricky spot here. They have a Crunch, but I have a Diggersby now that can just no-shield everything they're going to throw. Shield Advantage Shadow Gator should be in a fantastic spot to close out this endgame. As long as there's not another Toxapex in the backline, we should be fine. Our opponent throwing another charge move against us here, likely going to be an Aqua Tail. If it is a Crunch to go for a debuff, that'd be kind of crazy, but I guess I'd respect it. In comes the Scorching Sands. We wait a turn, make sure no catch on that Jumpluff ends up happening here. This Scorching Sands should easily knock them out from this point, and Shadow Gator is going to try to win this endgame. With that said, they do have a Shadow Annihilape, which gets a full 5 counter lead against our Gator in the backline. We lag a turn as well, which means we miss out on a full Shadow Claw of energy. This is looking a little bit trickier than I'd like it to be. I'm just going to go for fast moves. I'm going to call the catch here right now, and that is exactly what's going to happen. We Shadow Claw all the way down against that Jumpluff. We have an Ice Beam loaded. Why not? We'll throw it against the Shadow Ape, show a little bit of dominance here, and take out one of the most annoying Pokemon that we can see in the entire meta. GG's to our opponent there. Jumpluff a little tricky for our team, but as you can see, very flexible team comp just in general, right? Goodra is not the best Pokemon neutrally in this current Open Great League meta, but Shadow Gator and Diggersby can complement a lot of the weaknesses that you're going to have here, and Goodra just in the better matchups with the super effective Aqua Tail and Thunder Punch damage, it can put in a ton of work. Alright, well thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed the battles and you want to see more content like this in the future, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.